My lords, my ladies, I have something a little bit unusual for you today. I haven't been able to stream, so I thought I'd put a video out on YouTube, but I happened to oversee a conversation with someone that was a bit wild, and I thought it was much too funny to leave on Discord, so it's been acted out by typecast.ai, which took me 3 days to massage the script into place and it still isn't quite right. And the audio is a little bit deep fried because otherwise I have to shell out like $150. Um, which is probably not a great advertisement for Typecast. So if your voice was stolen for it, I'm sorry. Um, the content that we're looking at is so Final Fantasy V, well known, very easy game. Forge of Fiesta exists because it's so easy. It's a fairly beginner friendly speedrun. It's not too difficult to casually blow through. Well, this guy gets demolished by it so hard that he unlocks his racism limiter. It's really something. So yeah. I've left the video mostly blank, like I've included some images for amusement, but you can mostly just listen to this if you don't want to like keep the video open while you're doing something else. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive in.
Fucking Christ, the final dungeon in FFE is miserable. Mazes, high encounter rates, everything casts heavy hitting AO spells, and the bosses boil down to trial and error what we are weak to across 17 deaths.
Which boss are you having an issue with? Most bosses in 5 have some trick that rewards you for experimenting with the job system, or using guild toss.
It was Omega got it eventually. I don't get this game design. Like I just shit on a boss through pure luck because I enchanted with bio. How the fuck are you meant to understand the bosses besides trial and error?
Omega is a super boss.
It's a super piece of shit.
You're not really meant to fight it, LMAO. 5 is largely about discovering the synergies in the job system and talking with other players to share information, which is why they chose not to localize it, since Western players are traditionally bad at both of those things.
I'm combining dual wield and rapid fire, and it dumps on most things.
Yeah, that's the iconic cheese strat. So iconic that the super bosses in the GBA release have dummy targets to reduce your rapid fire output.
Wait, talking to other players to share information? That is fucking moronic game design. So Billy and Jimmy were just supposed to slam their heads against a brick wall and hope one of them gets blood on the right solution.
Gaming is a lot more social in Japan, so it's pretty normal for games to expect you to collaborate with other players. FF5 is also very easy though, so you won't have to try too long if you're on your own.
I just googled it to discover it's vulnerable to the one bard song that stuns for a turn. Somehow you were meant to know that.
It's the game's super boss. It's meant to be arcane and weird.
That is stupid.
Bro has never played a JRPG before.
This is why I play action games. I'm going to make a game that has a boss that does nothing except summon Warwick Davis IRL to stomp on your balls.
Be careful about the treasure chests in the dimensional rift. There's another super boss hiding there and it's much more difficult than Omega.
What the fuck does? Okay, this is what I mean. You say be careful, but like, how would anyone know which one it is?
It's in a very conspicuous chest on the last floor. You can't miss it.
It's like the red buttons. One that does nothing and one that launches a rocket-powered razor blade-covered dildo at your ass with a sign above them that says be smart.
If you're really scared of it, you can avoid opening any treasure chest you find until after Gilgamesh until you do the necrophoby fight.
Gilgamesh, necrophoby, Jesus Christ, how many bosses does this dungeon have? Hey Square, it's okay if the player beats a game before they die from old age. I think I fundamentally don't understand this design where bosses are very vulnerable to specific things. Absolutely fuck you if you do anything else. And you have no way to know what those things are.
You do have ways to find out by talking to NPCs, paying attention to patterns used in the game, experimenting. Or if you like, you can avoid it and use a fire and forget strategy like Spellblade dual wield rapid fire.
What do you mean by talking to NPCs and paying attention to patterns used in the game? I can't think of a single boss so far that has either of those things apply to it.
For example, this desert monster is weak to water. That desert monster is probably also weak to water. Byblos is in a book, so it's weak to fire. Aquatic monsters and machines are generally weak to lightning.
I haven't memorized any weaknesses in this series. It feels random per enemy.
It's less random than it seems, and NPCs will give you advice sometimes. You can also use the Blue Mage's scan ability.
I completely ignored Blue Mage because I saw its spells don't have descriptions, and I went, nah, fuck that.
Also, learning its spells is rough. You can find a few books from other blue mages and talk to some people to figure things out, but getting certain blue spells is asked because you need control from the Beastmaster.
From other blue mages?
There's an NPC you never meet who leaves behind a journal chronicling blue magic. Tracking them down gives you hints or outright tells you how to get some spells.
Is that in the final dungeon?
Nah, the first one is. I think you first find it in the Library of Ancients if you help exercise the books. There's a couple of others around the place. Anyway, Ninja and Ranger can generally carry you to the end of the game provided you can bring enough healing to keep up with Grand Cross. Given that you seem like you haven't explored much, you're probably pretty undergeared too, which won't be helping.
I think I explored everywhere and talked to everyone. Fuck if I remember what they said though. So this game is designed with the intention that you experiment with each spell, item, and ability to determine what exact properties they have.
And that you explore the world and talk to people, so like most JRPGs.
No wonder they didn't release this in the US originally. Absolutely miserable experience so far.
It also came out in Japan at a time when gaming was a very social activity, so there was the expectation of collaboration with other players. They skipped it in the US because they felt it would be too difficult for us audience and released Mystic Quest instead.
It's not too difficult, it's literally know what to do or get fucked. Once you know what a boss is weak to, you just slap at the menu like usual.
The downside is that 5 is a very easy game. Oh no, I have to revert to a save from a few minutes ago and try a new strategy.
Yes, this is genuinely intolerable to me.
I have the perfect game for you, Prince of Persia 2008.
Is that the one with the sand waif accompanying you?
It's the one where you can't die.
Does it have trial and error bosses?
No, the game tells you exactly what to do and how to do it.
The first 4 FFs were as peasy compared to this one. This one is just cock and ball torture. Well, except Zeramis. Zeramis can eat my ass.
FF5 is usually considered the easiest Final Fantasy game other than Mystic Quest, and Final Fantasy games in general aren't difficult.
This is considered the easiest.
If you engage your brain, yeah.
Every boss from the first 4 games except Zeramis I didn't die even once to.
I'm personally more amazed that you managed to die to Zeramis since they're basically a cutscene.
You have to be kidding. His flare attack hits for like 50% your health. I don't even know how I beat him. I think I got stupid lucky with crits.
Flare is only cast as a counterattack to black magic and holy, so you shouldn't be seeing that raw in the first place.
Nah, even if you do nothing he casts it. He does this like Rumble where he shakes and then a few seconds later slaps it out.
That's Big Bang. Flare is a different spell.
Yay, that's it.
He will counter with Flare during Big Bang if you hit him with something that procs the counter, but that's actually beneficial because it lowers his int each time he does it, nerfing his Big Bang.
Yay, I read about it after beating him. No idea how you are meant to know there's a counter mechanic in that fight at all, though.
The very first boss in the game teaches you about enemies counterattacking outside of their ATB charge, since FF4 introduced the ATB system.
What? The closest thing I can think of is that one water guy that lowers his shield if you hit him with lightning, but I'm like 99% sure the game explicitly tells you to do that somehow.
The first boss, the Mist Dragon, has a phase where it turns into mist and counterattacks you if you attack it, which Cecil and Kane talk about. Later bosses teach you that sometimes you can interrupt an enemy when they start charging up or going into a phase. For example, using Kane's jump to disrupt Barbarikia's tornado.
I did not pick up on that in any of those fights.
JRPGs might not be for you, not older ones anyway. Give FF13 a try instead.
How can you even tell when an enemy is charging up or going into a phase? The games don't communicate that to you.
Well, Barbarikia's entire sprite changes, which is a bit of a clue. Ceramus starts vibrating like a coked-up hamster, etc. Miss Dragon also changes its sprite entirely.
Her sprite changes, so your reaction is supposed to be have Kane use jump? I mean, I'm 99% certain that's what I did because Kane was airborne every moment I had him.
He can jump over the tornado and into the eye of the storm by attacking her from above. It's not a coincidence that she's the first fight after you get Kane back to teach you about using his jump.
That is not an intuitive way to teach someone at all.
Classic JRPGs might not be for you. Give FF13 a try instead. It's more action-focused and is a lot clearer about what does what. And you don't need to worry about accidentally walking into a super boss because it's locked to the post-game.
How in the world are you meant to connect Kane's jump hitting her with a reacting to it?
Because when you hit with it, she immediately gets forced out of her tornado and back to her regular form where she's vulnerable. Cause and effect.
How do you know it's connected to that specific attack, though? These simple JPEG sprites don't really convey cause and effect well at all. Could be she just shifts after X amount of time. Could be any attack.
Because if you hit her with any other physical attack, she counters you, and if you hit her with jump, she gets forced out of tornado. I'm pretty sure Kane also explicitly says that he can handle it, but it's been a while since I played FF4.
I really wish these games specified when an enemy behavior is a counter, like that fire thing boss in FF5, the one that shifts into a tornado and shit. I think it counters some things you do, but I couldn't exactly tell.
You can actually tell pretty easily, but it does require some observation. Liquid Flame's primary offense is actually done through counterattacking. He does technically have actual attacks, but will generally prefer to spend its real actions changing form.
Like there's this enemy called Ulti-Roid. It casts End Circle, which just removes a character from the fight. How are you meant to know how to counter that?
It looks like a wizard and exclusively casts spells, so
Silence?
Silence and Berserk are obvious choices.
Youth and then 500 other enemies, just ignore it. Oh yeah, Gogo can eat my ass. I actually kinda figured out how to get rid of Gogo, but I didn't expect it to take so long. After 30 seconds, I was like, okay, this clearly isn't working, and went back to trying to kill him.
It's to make you sweat the timer. You can actually beat him the hard way by using magic against him because he's open to silence and will always attempt to counter magic with magic. He's a mime after all.
I figured with enough Phoenix Downs I could just smack him. Raise, repeat.
That's true too, but he does have 47,000 horsepower, so the timer starts to become a lot more concerning at that point. He does explicitly tell you how to beat him though.
Fucking shit, fuck this stupid optimum gear. Every time I change abilities, stop and equip in my Hermes sandals, you dumb fucking game. Oh cool, Apocalypse dispels your float. Good thing I switched out time magic for Gaia.
Yeah, he knows basically every possible blue magic.
Still beat him thanks to rapid fire. I'm guessing you just keep float up. I'm running out of fucking cottages in this dungeon. 11 left.
Oh, you're way earlier into the dungeon than I thought. You're coming up on the last floor now, though. If you got through as Olmeja, and beating him spawns a save point, which is useful.
The fuck is the point of a run function if it never goddamn works?
You can't run from bosses.
I'm fighting regular enemies. Stupid death claw things that remove all your health and make you into zombies.
If you're that concerned about regular enemies, bring a thief with smoke. Just having a thief at all makes it basically impossible to get back attacked, and smoke is 100% run against any enemy that can be escaped. That said, the last boss has a level range from 77 to 86. Getting in some more levels won't hurt because level is a huge factor in the game's calculations.
I hate this game.
Wrecked.
Back attack and half the party is fucked.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get back attacked. Bring a thief.
What a cool mechanic. Chance to get fucked in the butt. Okay, my only healer is a zombie and I have no idea how to cure it. Fun. Sleeping does not cure zombification. 10 cottages left.
You didn't stock up on status cure items.
There's one for zombies.
Holy water. You can buy it pretty much anywhere. Any item shop from Regal onwards.
How in the hell do you have the town names memorized?
I only have the important ones memorized. This one I looked up to make sure it was as prevalent as I thought it was.
Guess I'm grinding Bart's until he can cast Azuna.
There's a reason the game is like, are you absolutely sure, before you go into the void?
I actually had to reload a bunch because I kept flying into it accidentally, and if you touch the void tiles at all, you get sucked in.
It gives you a chance to back out if you just bared the airship from where you dock inside the void.
Oh, was I supposed to do something with the 12 legendary weapons first? I just flew in once I had the 4 tablets.
You can choose to go get them if you so desire, which is useful since the dungeons they contain will help you level up and get job levels, as well as providing gear on top of the legendary weapons, but you can skip them once you have enough tablets to get by if you want.
Wait, I thought the castle they were in vanished. There are optional dungeons with them in it.
The only one you have to get is the Pyramid of More.
God bless Rapid Fire. Fucking game would be impossible without it.
It's still pretty easy even without Rapid Fire. Anyway, getting the other 3 tablets gets you Flare, Holy, and Meteor, which is obviously beneficial since those are the strongest magics for their disciplines.
I got all 3 of those. I don't use them though.
You should have picked up all the sealed weapons, then, which will help you out a bit.
I don't think I picked up any of them. At least if I did, the game didn't say, Jack, you get them just by getting the tablet.
You need to actually go and unseal them from the sealed castle. Sage Guido tells you about it when you meet up with him in the Library of the Ancients.
Didn't the sealed castle vanish? I could have sworn it was one of the spots that got sucked in.
They get unsixed if you leave the void after that cutscene due to the void messing with the flow of time, and SNES carts being tiny.
If you leave the void, why is this game so goddamn cryptic?
You can also just go there before entering the void at any time when you have the tablets.
No, but I mean, didn't the sealed castle get sucked in with everywhere else after the pyramid?
It's present in the merged world.
Okay, so to get the sealed weapons you do every tablet except the pyramid, because once you do the pyramid he removes the castle.
The sealed castle is still present after you get the pyramid tablet. You're thinking of Castle Tycoon, which XD sucks up.
9 cottages. Lord God in heaven, hear my prayer. Let this game be over soon, please.
LMAO, let me know if you can't figure it out and I'll tell you how to beat it.
Got him. Enchanted Holy and Rapid Fire. No idea how to avoid his AO crap.
He only counters in his normal form.
He has forms. Those were counters. I don't get this game.
His sprite doesn't change, but on the programming side his charging up state is a different form. When he's charging up, powering up for Giga Flare, it doesn't counter, its defense drops to 9, its level falls to 0, and it loses the heavy tag. He has a 1/3 chance of countering physical attacks with Tidal Wave and magical attacks with Mega Flare normally, which goes away when he's charging. Due to losing the heavy tag while charging, he's also open to Petrify, Death, Toad, and Stop, so you could use Bard's Stop Song on him.
Jesus Christ, was the development team made up of sociopaths? Were they in a really bad mood the entire time they were making this?
You fought enemies in the game previously which became vulnerable when they were charging up, like the big cannon at the Flying Ronka ruins.
The one that has like 8 messages before it fires? I just burned it down with monks before it fired.
Twintania only tells you once, but the same strategy applies. While it's charging, kill it. Exteeth is going to vibe check you real hard though.
How do you know it becomes vulnerable? And what it becomes vulnerable to?
When someone is charging up, a strong attack is usually a good time to hit them in any game. You know it begins charging up because it tells you. As to figuring out what it's vulnerable to, you can use scan or you can just pepper it with your favorites and see what sticks.
Oh yeah, they brought back behemoths that counter everything. Very extremely fun enemy to deal with.
That's what behemoths do.
This better be the last floor, and that better not be Gilgamesh in the corner.
Behemoths are open to every status except Mini and Calm, so you can just hit them with Berserk.
Please stop trying to make me use magic. I fucking hate using magic. I am the guy that ends a game with 3, 3, 2, 1, 9, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 7 useful items in my inventory because I despise resource management. I cannot into using magic for offense or buffs because every MP point feels like lost healing. You should have seen me late game FF4, whittling an encounter down to 1 weak enemy and defending for 15 minutes while spamming prayer and screaming every time it fails.
You seem determined to give yourself a miserable experience, I see.
The alternative is too annoying to be viable.
Winning a fight in 20 seconds and moving on to the next restore point is annoying.
I don't even have enough cottages for restore points to be an option now.
On that subject, how are you backtracking to a save point after every fight?
After every boss, yes.
That explains why you're taking so much attrition. You're better off moving forwards. This is true for most RPGs. Did you remember to pick up teleport?
Yay, I just walk out of dungeons though. Oh, thank you, Gilgamesh isn't a real fight.
Given that you're somehow complaining about being low on resources, you're probably better off teleporting out of the dungeon, stocking up, and coming back, since Exteeth is going to bully you.
He cannot be worse than Omega.
His first form you should just plow through with Spellblade dual-wield rapid fire. His second form will be rougher. So did you lose a bet or something? Because you seem like you hate JRPGs and yet you're playing them.
I'm trying to learn to like them, so I'm going through all the FF games in order. 1 to 4 weren't bad. This is actual hell.
Yeah, you definitely don't have the temperament for FF5 Omeo. FF6 to 8 will also be rough on you.
Why, is every boss a fucking trial and error festival from here on out?
6, 7, and 8 have very customizable characters, which means that they include challenges appropriate to that amount of player agency.
Lamoa save stated before encountering Shinria, immediate 8k to everyone AO spell.
Yeah, Shinria leads with Tidal Wave, that's what he does.
Of course, they don't put a save spot before him.
If you beat Necrophobe, optional, you can save there.
Time to bash my head against the wall until I figure out what stops Tidal Wave.
Unlike Omega, who is just a stats machine, Shinria is here to see if you've really mastered FF5.
How in the hell is there anything to master? The game doesn't teach the player anything. There is no skill to gain, it's just random crap every single boss.
Lol, Omeo even. The game doesn't give you knowledge, but there's plenty to learn and lots of skill involved in understanding and mastering the job system. There's a reason stuff like 4-job Fiesta exists.
Wow, good thing I savestated because this Necro asshole is 78 years away from the last save point. Thanks, devs. And opens with 4 flare casts.
He's also literally invincible unless you figure out why.
The 4 things around him?
They're called barriers, so yeah, that might be a good place to start.
Boy, this asshole just does not stop casting ever, does he?
It's not him. Necrophobia doesn't actually do anything. The barriers have permanent reflect and self-cast Holy Flare, and AO Tier 3 magic to bounce it onto you. They also only have a bit under 9k HP.
Why is the last save spot so far away?
Because beating Necrophobia gives you 1.
I mean far away from him.
Because beating Necrophobia gives you 1.
I mean for attempts against him.
The point of fighting him is to get a closer save point to the final boss in Shinria. He's also free.
I'm sure he would be if I knew how to counter any of this or deal more than 4k split across 4 random targets.
That's pretty bad rapid fire damage. Are you remembering to use dual wield or spellblade with it?
I've got 2 enhancers and a thief knife for my 3 mystic knights.
That explains it. Their strength is pretty bad, plus 14, although the enhancer is excellent.
Plus 14.
Character stats are determined by the character and don't change, except that Galif and Kryl have different base stats, but the differences are low, so the main determinant is the modifiers from your job, which gives you a stat modifier, except for HP and MP, which are level derived. Level is also used directly in most calculations, so high level is very good. Plus 14 is the Mystic Knight's strength bonus. Bartz's base strength is 28, which is why he has 42 strength right now. That bonus is significantly worse than jobs like Knight, plus 23, Dragon, plus 18, or Ranger, plus 16. That will be holding back your damage quite a bit. You're better off putting Spellblade on another job.
I have no idea how to deal better damage except using them to enchant either Holy or Flare or sometimes Bio. For some reason, lots of shit is weak to that.
Mime is so strong because it can uniquely have 3 custom abilities instead of just 1, and you can run dual wield, rapid fire, and Spellblade together. This combination is so strong, it's Bartz's ultimate in Dissidia.
I gave up on mine because I couldn't figure out the mimic action.
The easiest way to deal more damage is actually to raise your level using Hero's Rhyme or a Hero Drink, or to get better equipment. But you could immediately get better damage out of that Mystic Knight Bartz by just changing him to Knight and equipping Rapid Fire. You could also use Freelancer, since Freelancer inherits the highest stat modifiers from among your mastered jobs and has 2 ability slots, allowing for both dual wield and rapid fire.
I swear I read the manual for this game before and it didn't say any of this.
Oh yeah, do you still have the Excalibur that you got from Gilgameshan Xd's castle?
Yay, the joke sword.
Joke sword.
It hits for like 1.
Excalibur has 100 battle power and 100 accuracy. The reason it hits for like 1 is because of its special effect.
Of course, this is all written somewhere, right?
Not in game, but you'll find out immediately if you equip it because its battle power is so high and then discover that you're doing like 1 damage. But if you use rapid fire, it overrides added abilities from weapons. This also works with Goblin Punch, Jump Mug, and Sword Dance.
I do not know what battle power is.
Battle power is the weapon's attack power, labeled attack in the menu.
How do you know any of this?
FF5 is one of the most played Final Fantasy games and is incredibly well documented. Since people began sharing their setups with each other almost immediately when the game finally appeared in the West.
Time to find out if Necro ignores Reflect.
I actually don't know if Reflect works on reflected spells in FF5 since that tends to change between games. Necrophobe's actual very nasty attacks are all unreflectable though.
Okay, cool. Reflect decides not to work now. Yes, wonderful cast holy 3 times in a row. The player can do anything about this.
You sure can. You can even get them to kill themselves.
Let me guess. I have to shove a broom up my ass while doing a handstand at midnight. That causes them to kill themselves. Is it control?
No, it's the Bard's Hide command. Reflect doesn't trigger if there is no valid bounce target, so they'll just burn themselves to death.
Of course, naturally, highly intuitive.
Bard is much better than it seems at first glance as a riff on FF4 where Edward was actually just trash in the original release. Similarly, jumping everyone will also work.
Cool. 4 knights got 2 barriers down before dying. Helps when they actually target the ones in front.
The barriers are also not heavy and are open to instant death, petrify, stop, and silence, so you know, not really a fight.
How can you tell this?
Experimenting to see what they're vulnerable to.
So you're intended to mess around, die, and then walk back 5 minutes to repeat.
I mean, you only die if your team is bad.
Right, you only die if you aren't a mind reader or fortune teller.
FF5 is super easy since the enemies that aren't named Shinria do low damage, except Liquid Flame. So even if you have to rotate through your options a bit to find out what works, you shouldn't be dying.
What, low damage? This dude Necro hits for like 1k with each cast at minimum.
1k is pretty low damage.
When everyone has 2,400 to 2,800?
It's less than half your health, so yeah, low damage. Your real concern should be his Vacuum Wave Hurricane combo, which sets your HP to single digits and inflicts sap.
Less than half is low, alright.
You don't need to worry about the next fight because there's a save point right after, so it doesn't matter how low he gets you.
I don't think I can outfeel his damage output.
You should have a stock of elixirs and stuff you can use. There's 3 in the first layer of the rift alone.
I don't use consumables, not even on final boss battles. It really bothers me.
Well, if you want to make the game harder on yourself for no reason, that's up to you.
Okay, never mind, this run is just fucked right away since a random crystal dragon feels like throwing a butt-pounding tornado at me 3 times in a row. Never mind, 4 times.
Not using consumables or magic means you're really limited in your options and everything, which is why you're having such a bad time. FF5 is all about using everything you have and acquiring disgusting synergies.
What in the actual fuck happened between 1 to 4 in this? Why is this so much harder?
It's easier. You're just choosing to play badly, and it's making your run hard.
It's abominable. I could face Earl the first 4 games with one eye closed and my good hand up my ass.
You could be done by now. Okay, you want to know how to win the game really easily. You don't care about money, right?
Yeah, guild toss I know, but that feels like pay to win. Wow, this crystal dragon just hates me.
I actively refuse to use the tools the game gave me. Why is this game so difficult?
Why does it make me use the tools? I could ignore most stuff in the first few games. It cannot be easier if it requires more thought and planning. Like 1 to 4, I just ignored magic. Whenever Tella was in my party, his job was to sit back and shut up. Porum and Palom had rods.
That explains why you spent 15 minutes per encounter wishing for prayer.
What the hell does Excalibur do again, because I'm dual-wielding it with a brave knife and it's still hitting for 1?
You need to use an attack ability that overrides its added ability, so you need to be in a job that can equip both dual wield and rapid fire, like Freelancer or Mime.
This game has cost me a controller.
JRPGs might not be for you.
Last spike made the left analog stick on my F310 drift to the upper left.
FF5 isn't about doing sick in battle menus. It's about setting up your team and face-rolling through all opposition. If you don't have the patience to use the menu and learn how the game works, you're never going to enjoy it. FF6 is much the same way, but you have more options for sick in battle menus due to things like Runic.
Weird. I've always heard of FF5 as being the black sheep, notorious for being not fun, but 6 is supposed to be really good.
FF5 is mostly notorious for its story being very light-hearted and camp, and also very, very easy if you put in even a little effort, which is why people stay away from it. It also had an absolutely hideous PSX port as its first Western release with terrible loading times. Many people found the job system daunting and didn't engage with it, as you're demonstrating.
I don't have any issue with the job system. I don't even feel slightly confused by it. The thing that confuses me are all these hidden mechanics with equipment and bosses. Every boss fight feels like one of those games where you flip over cards and match the images on the other side, except there is 100 cards, and if you don't get it right the first time, you're hit in the balls with a claw hammer.
Personally, I'm amazed that Necrophobe's barriers are blowing you off the field. Holy and Flare have pretty bad damage calculation when set against the player, and you should be wearing Element Null gear by now.
Element Null gear? What the hell nullifies Holy and Flare?
Holy is Holy Elemental as the name implies, but the Elemental nullification remark was more about the other attacks they can do since they can cast Tier 3 Elemental magic.
I have flame rings, but jack shit for ice and lightning. Okay, Excalibur with Brave on rapid fire deals 500 damage. I'm not comprehending whatever the meme sword is supposed to do. I just accidentally hailed the enemy.
You're getting the damage reduced for dual wielding, but rapid fire's damage calculation means you're getting more total damage. It's better when concentrated into a single target.
It's dealing less damage with Brave than my dude's dual wielding enhancers are doing.
Yeah, 'cause enhancers have 102 battle power and you've been running away from battles, so the Brave blade is screwed.
I've only run away from like 5 battles the whole game. Think I can deal around 6k damage per turn with 2 knights and a samurai and just cast Kuriga every turn.
You have 5 targets though, and any attack against Necrophobia is void. Rapid fire isn't a great choice for the fight until you get rid of the barriers. You're better off using Zeni or Summon Magic. Bahamut will absolutely annihilate them. For example,
I absolutely dunked on Bahamut, killed him in 2 moves.
I meant the summon.
Oh.
But yeah, he's free.
I never used summons with Radia and FF4. This crystal dragon is a regular fucking enemy and it hits everyone for 700 ish damage per turn. Holy shit.
Welcome to the last floor of the last dungeon. If you're sure you want to try and fight Shinria, you could try stealing dragon lances from the crystal dragons. They only have 17,500 horsepower though, so you should be one-turning them.
I'll just make a few attempts at him before looking up the solution. Fuck this trial error shit. Wait, how in the world would I be dealing 17,500 in 1 turn?
Rapid fire. You shouldn't have much issue hitting those numbers with multiple rapid fire users and a single target. There are ways to break Shinryu, but you have to survive tidal wave regardless.
I bet if I surgically attach a satellite dish to my left nipple while howling at the moon atop the Taj Mahal, I can avoid the damage from it.
What element do you think tidal wave might be?
Ice. No idea how to counter it though.
Really? Tidal wave is an ice attack. Tidal wave is an ice attack.
Is that wrong? It's fucking water.
Of course it's water. It's a literal wave of water.
Okay, so it's ice. Knowing that gives me no advantage.
So you can avoid it by equipping gear that absorbs water.
I have not seen any gear that absorbs that element.
Like the coral ring, which absorbs water and nulls fire.
I don't even remember where I got this.
There's one to find in the rift as a pity drop. Otherwise you can buy them in Istory and the Phantom Village.
That must be it. How in the hell are the town names actually in your brain? I cannot remember a single one across all 5 games.
History is one of the best grinding spots in World 1 because you can farm the mini-dragons in the forest around it, and the Phantom Village basically sells all of the best items in the game, so it's kind of hard to forget about.
Wait, it nulls fire, meaning you take 0 damage?
From fire, yes, and water attacks will heal you.
That's weird. I figured wearing ice gear makes you more vulnerable to fire.
Water and ice are not the same element, just like Pokemon.
Are you serious? Holy shit, I hate this game.
Water and ice are almost never the same element in Final Fantasy.
So what the hell counters ice?
Ice Shield. I think there's an ick for it as well, but ice isn't very scary.
How are they not the same element? Ice is just cold water. Got 'em at square. Okay, wonderful Necro just focuses none target every single time and slaughters them. Fun.
Yeah, he hits hard. Unlike his barriers and Vacuum Wave, Plushurcane can just kill someone. He's also weak to all elements and open to a bunch of statues, notably Darkness and Silence. And he happens to be level 66, so you can hit him with level 2 old.
One barrier left. Ferris is dead. Die, you piece of shit.
I'm seriously in awe that you're getting filtered by Necrophobe's barriers.
And I forgot to drink ethers before the fight, so I can't heal. I thought you said Necro does nothing.
Necro himself doesn't do anything until the barriers are down, but they'll self-cast magic to reflect onto you. That would normally be irrelevant since you would instantly obliterate them with basically anything. They're not heavy and not immune to petrify, death, silence, and stop, but since you're intentionally crippling yourself, you kind of just have to deal with it.
I was hoping to finish this game like 5 hours ago. Fuck this miserable torture device masquerading as entertainment.
Bro, you decided to cripple yourself and not use anything the game gave you. Of course you're going to have a hard time.
It's a goddamn JRPG. Strategy and planning should not be a thing. This genre is supposed to be brain-dead piss easy.
Who told you that, LMAO? JRPGs have always been about strategy and planning. There's a reason that the most influential JRPG begins with you literally building a completely custom team from scratch.
Down to one barrier, buffing. Oh, the barriers can run out of MP. Neat.
Yeah, they only have 300, but... wow, you should never discover that.
I think I got it. Gilgy showed up. Fucking hard-ass boss.
Necrophobe would normally be completely free, Olmeo. He's usually only remembered as that guy Gil Games blew up.
I have played a ton of games, and this is easily within the top 5 hardest I have ever touched. I tried playing Baba Is You once, and it made me realize I cannot play puzzle games at all because by the 3rd level I had chipped one of my front teeth and was getting lightheaded from anger.
So how's Xteeth going?
Tomorrow is Shinria.
Unless you want to back out of the void entirely, I'd strongly recommend skipping Shinria.
I will not be wearing any element gear or using magic, because nothing in a JRPG should ever require those.
Have fun wiping to Tidal Wave. He always opens the battle with Tidal Wave, and if you can't survive it, you don't even get to start the fight.
I will burn through his poopy waves of septic torment with sheer hate. Is there really no way to survive it without proper gear besides insane overleveling?
Even insane overleveling won't usually help you because of Shinria's magic power, which acts as a multiplier and is where most of the damage of a spell comes from. To put this into perspective, the barriers that were giving you so much trouble had a magic power of 4. Shinria's is 52. Your level also isn't used in the defensive calculation.
Okay, so he just deals fuck you damage and you need gear to bypass it. That's dumb.
It's a super boss. It's not meant to be fair.
That's dumb.
You can, in theory, disable him before Tidal Wave goes off if you have a very specific setup, but you don't really have the characters for it.
Why are the Japanese so fucking allergic to putting descriptions with spells? It's like explaining something causes them physical pain.
The SNES version has to do a lot of truncating to fit stuff into tiny text windows, but most of this back-end stuff is irrelevant to the player most of the time. All you need to know is that Shinria hits like a train, and if you don't have some way to deal with it, you're not beating him. Tidal Wave is the game checking if you have the right to fight him. If you get filtered by it, you need to change your strategy or ignore him.
What strategy? Wear gear or die?
Yep, use equipment to negate his advantages. The most basic of basics goes back to DN. There's a reason you get 5 equipment slots and enemies get none.
That's it. You make it sound like this is some sort of grand high logic puzzle.
It is a puzzle, but the logic is pretty simple. You either find a way to not die to tidal wave or you don't beat Shinria. That's true for everything in a game ever.
It's literally know what is coming and exactly how to counter it or die.
And when the party dies, you get to load the game and try again. And since you know it's going to lead with an 8,000 damage water-themed attack, you can do something about it.
Yay, but that part sucks.
Ruby Weapon is going to be fun for you when you get to FF7.
If I die in God of War, it's not because my strategy is bad. It's that my skills were insufficient.
Most of the skill in JRPGs is in formulating your strategy and setting up your team. Execution is usually a pretty low requirement in Final Fantasy games, unless you're doing advanced death by math in FF5 or something.
How do you form a strategy when you cannot infer anything about a boss before dying to it?
There's a lot of approaches you can take when doing a dungeon crawl, from building a team around a specific fight-winning strategy to making yourself invincible to just not getting into fights at all of which you can do in FF5.
Why is this so hard got 'em that I didn't even pay attention during the first 4 games?
If you walk into a boss and it immediately obliterates you, that tells you that your current setup is not sufficient for it and you should try something else, using the data you gained from your first attempt. That's how learning works.
So to learn, you must die. That's lame.
Well, you'll probably only really die to Shinria like that. Since FF5 is otherwise so easy and Shinria is unusual for leading with the tidal wave vibe, check to see if you even have the right to battle him. Unless you really don't pay attention in Fork Tower, I guess.
I don't know how you can call it easy when so many bosses are nightmares unless you know the exact strategy.
Well, very few bosses are immune to rapid fire, and you get that so early that the only dangerous boss beforehand is Liquid Flame.
I didn't look at Necrophage and immediately went, yes, clearly the barriers are vulnerable to XYZ.
Necrophobia. You could find that out for yourself just by testing it, since if something is casting spells and blowing you up, disabling its spellcasting might be a good idea.
You'd think that, but this game likes to ignore casts.
What?
There's tons of casters you can't silence.
Silence is only one way to disable a caster. Stop, Petrify, Berserk, and Toad will all stop them from spellcasting. Petrify also wins the fight, but that's besides the point.
I have tried to cast slow on every boss I can and it never works. Not once.
IRC, if you see the slow animation, then slow was applied, and if no animation plays, then it missed, but that might be in FF6. I cannot remember.
Okay, see, that is atrocious player feedback. The game is really bad at conveying info. Like earlier when you said the floating cannon boss is vulnerable while charging.
Technically, it's not any more vulnerable when charging, but it exists to teach you that you should probably pile in and kill an enemy before it finishes charging up an attack, so that you know to try and kill Twintania before it can cast Giga Flare.
I had no idea because the game didn't communicate that I was doing anything special.
Well, if you didn't kill it before it finished charging, it would have blown you up.
How do I know I'm not meant to use some esoteric spell to counter it instead?
You're welcome to try if you think that's a good idea. If you die, well, you know better now.
That's a really unfun way to design a game.
You have a lot of options in how you handle things in FF5, so the game doesn't usually ask you to cast specific spells, especially since there are so many ways to get outside abilities. Rapid fire is very powerful, but there are certain situations, like Necrophobe, where it isn't your best choice, so trying to brute force the game with it is not making things easier for you.
It's like the fucking Gill Turtles. Oh, you don't know that these are somehow undead? You didn't know they counter no matter what? Fucking trial and errored everything.
They're also heavy, so you can't cast Raise or use a Phoenix down on it.
Wait, why would you use those on an enemy?
Healing effects deal damage to undead enemies. As is tradition, revival items kill them instantly, but the game correctly transposes them as an instant death effect, so it's blocked by the heavy tag.
I'm sure the game communicates that revival items are considered holy, right?
They aren't considered holy, and that isn't what I said.
I know cure damages undead because it's holy.
It's not holy, it damages undead because it's a healing fact. Cure doesn't have an element.
That's how the fuck what? That's not what?
DN works the same way. Positive energy heals the living and harms the undead. Instant death effects will fully heal undead enemies in most FF games instead of killing them.
God, I hate the end.
Revive Kill Zombie is super entrenched in most games, so it's generally worth thinking about if the enemy looks like a zombie.
That's dumb. Glad this is all stated in game. Fuck this cryptic nonce. Gif of Kratos killing a monster. Haha, monster go dead.
It's really pretty simple. If it's undead, then healing hurts it. Monsters have more health, better stats, and more dangerous and esoteric attacks than you do, so you need to flexibly respond to what you're up against.
That's dumb.
Monsters are also static and can't think, which for most people means the player has a huge advantage. But for some people, it's a more even playing field.
Thinking is an advantage for me when I can't comprehend my enemy or how to counter it.
So it would seem. At any rate, I strongly recommend skipping Shinria, as you aren't in a position to try and disable it before Tidal Wave, and the alternative is backtracking and farming up 150k gil.
I absolutely hate this game. Encounter something called a mover, die to it. Look up the strategy, dualcast mime, mimic, holy blah blah blah, let me just fucking slap shit and move on, holy shit.
If you get a mover, you should be happy. They're the best enemy in the game. Their formation is worth 150k gil and 397 AP.
Yay, okay, Minflayer, caster class. Ignores silence and bio. Fuck this game. Zero consistency or way to know what works on shit.
It's actually not immune to silence, but it's level 53 and has 66 magic evade.
This game was made by a time traveler who knew wikis would exist one day. There's no way in hell Yoa could know that otherwise.
Well, you can get its level off scan, but you don't need to know the exact numbers to realize that it's hard to make magic stick on it.
The game doesn't communicate if something fails due to a bad roll or if the enemy is just flat out immune, and like half of them are immune to most of your crap.
Yet the lack of visual feedback about inflicting bad status on enemies is something I am also annoyed about. I think it's 6 that fixes that.
So the gimmick with meme is that you use it for a free cast.
You use it to mimic the previous ability. If you ever actually use mime, lots of people use it more for its godlike stats and 3 command slots.
I legitimately don't see much use for its 3 slots besides just giving it magic. Its equipment is way too limited.
Fortunately, it can equip knives, so it can use the chicken knife, the best weapon in the game. Unfortunately, you picked the brave blade, but that's not insurmountable.
I didn't even know there was a choice. I saw 2 crates and a skeleton. Leftmost crate was close, so I used that. I didn't get a chance to talk to him.
Freelancer does give you dual wield if the character has mastered ninja, so if you would prefer its much better equipment choices, you can do Freelancer with Spellblade and Rapid Fire.
Yay, but Freelancer doesn't gain abilities from anything. It doesn't level its job.
That doesn't matter. It inherits the best stat mods of all the jobs the character has mastered, as well as most of their innate support abilities except Berserk, and can use any equipment. So if you haven't been speedrunning, it's often the best choice for endgame. Especially if you don't want to figure out stuff like Chemist.
Of fucking course they put Shinri at the very end of a dungeon you can't exit out of. Yeah, I know it's meant to be unfair and miserable.
I genuinely didn't know you can't exit out of the rift. My bad, I suggested it earlier.
Why can I not run from absolutely anything in this dungeon?
Bring a ninja with smoke or a thief with flee. Note that each time you run, your brave blade will get its battle power nerfed, so you'll have to change it out for something else.
About to die to 2 ninjas because I can't hit them. My black mudge is out of mana. I fucking hate magic. I fucking hate resource management. Fuck whoever invented numbers. My mime, for some reason, only has access to level 2 white magic despite mastering it.
That's weird. Try scrolling your menu.
I figured out the issue. I was looking at my black magic menu.
That'll do it.
I hate this game.
Skill issue.
Why does this game not describe item properties for everything? Like ice fire shields don't say anything about elemental absorption.
You might need to look at them in your inventory since space is at a premium in the equip menu. I don't normally play the SNES versions, so I'm not sure.
I'm reading about surumage, which is a concept in Japan that some games are usually hard to learn or figure out, but slowly become more interesting and more addicting the more you play them. Games for a particular kind of audience that likes to figure out things on their own, play around various game systems, and replay games a lot. I feel like this applies to FF5. And I feel like the fact that this is even a thing at all reinforces my belief that Japan is just a nation of autistic people.